Hi everybody, I wanted to record the talk that I gave at ElevateCX London in October 31st, 2025 to be able to actually share that information with the wider community because while London was great at ElevateCX, we had a wonderful time there. I think the conversations around some of the things that we had were definitely worth showing and sharing, and so I wanted to record a version of my talk, which was demystifying support operations. And really this is about being able to kind of understand getting started with support operations in your organization, how it could be structured for you, and really thinking about what are the things that we should be defining for them as a team when it comes to roles or responsibilities or focuses, because, well, it's a very ambiguous role and it can be challenging to get started with. The slides here that I'm going to share were built for an in-person audience, but there are some things that I would challenge you to reflect on and think about as you watch the video and as we have this conversation, as we go through it as well. So without that, let's go a little bit more into it. A little bit about me. I'm the head of customer experience and operations at the Academy to Innovate HR, or AIHR. It's an e-learning organization in the HR space, so we train and upskill HR professionals globally. So I help support the operations team, our customer experience team, and our support team to be able to be successful there. And we started when there was about 8 people or so at AIHR, and now we're a bit over 100 plus, so definitely thought about the scaling and growing process when it comes to operations throughout that company and customer growth as well. So excited to be able to relate that experience of some of the challenges that we went through, and we defined that as well. I also host Grow Support. Grow Support is a podcast and resource library for support professionals to develop in their careers and scale support from a small organization to a large organization and really start thinking about the fundamentals of how to get things structured, set up, and built. So very common conversations that we have. If you want, we can connect on LinkedIn, have a conversation. You can always email me at neil@growsupport.io to answer any questions or continue that conversation. So always excited for those types of interactions with folks to be able to help them get started and think about the way to structure it. In person, this was a raise of hands. Digitally, I would challenge you to reflect and think about where you are at in the process of support operations. Just a couple of questions to get us started. How do you actually have support operations within your organization? Is that something that you have today, and do you believe that it is clear for you? Does that really set up as a really clear roles and responsibilities? Do you know exactly what they do? And is that something that you actually are operating with today? I think that's really great. And maybe this conversation gives you some inspiration of how to make it either clearer or continue building that function out in the future. For the group that is a bit more ambiguous, or maybe you do have it set up really structured, that's wonderful. For those, some people might have it a bit more ambiguous. We have support operations. They do so much for the teams. But what exactly are the things that they should be focusing on, and how can they structure their areas of focus and expertise a little bit better? That's the second group of people that this conversation is for. And the third group of people that this organization is for really knowing where to start. And I think there's a group of folks who might not have support operations. They don't know how to get started with it, or they're thinking about building it in the future. And they really want to know, what should I be looking at when I get started with this? And that's really what this conversation is for, is helping those people to get a clearer view into what support operations can think about and what it could look like within their organization. So in order to accomplish that, we're going to talk about a couple of things. That is, one, defining what support operations is, and I look back at the definition that I used when I started thinking about support operations, how that's actually evolved, the main challenges that support operations faces, because let's be honest, it's a bit of an ambiguous role, and something that we definitely want to clarify and be able to build. Then there are the 4 pillars of support operations. This is the framework that I use and how I develop support operations within our organization here at AIHR, and how I would continue to build that out when it comes to roles, responsibilities, and focuses for a support operations team in the future. I didn't start with any budget for support operations, and in fact, I still have no budget for support operations, so share a little bit about my experience and how we got started with it and how we run it here at AIHR in my experience, and then also we say talk through some questions here, but what I would challenge you is to comment in the bottom of the video, and I can help answer any of those questions that you might have in the comment section, or also continue that conversation directly with me, and I'm happy to follow up with any questions, answers, etc. From this conversation. So without further ado, what is support ops? I think that's something that people think about quite a lot. Hey, I hear a lot about support operations. What does it actually mean? What does it actually do? What are they there for? And I rely on this definition from Matthew Patterson from Help Scout, which I started thinking about support operations some years ago, which is that the team is really there for helping the support team to be more productive at work, more effective, and better deliver service to customers. Where I think about it is, hey, we support the supporters to help their customers. So I help teams to help their customers as effectively as possible. I want agent lives to be efficient. I want it to be easy for agents to be able to help customers. And I want those customers to have really, really good outcomes. We want them to be as productive as possible. We want them to be able to be efficient in their customer interactions. Things are clunky. Things don't really work. We want to reduce as much friction in that support experience for both agents and customers alike. And this is the definition that I really started with when I started thinking about and building support operations. So as a baseline definition, I think that this is really, really good. However, this definition's evolved for me over the past couple of years. There's a few things that have changed or shaped my perspective on what the focus should be, and maybe some things shouldn't be left out. Or should be clarified really directly. And I think that comes from the main challenge that support operations faces as a function and as a team. Where support operations, when you think about it, do you think, I really know what they do. I know exactly who they serve. I know exactly what they should be focusing on and what they should be driving. And for me, it becomes a place where support operations serves three main people. They support teams to be the most effective, the most efficient, and I want support people to have the easiest life ever to be able to help customers. I want them to help as many customers as possible, have an easy time doing it, and life should be great. And so they serve teams. Support operations directly impacts the experience that customers have on your support. If your processes and policies are so clunky and they're built in such a way that don't work, support operations should be there to say, hey, customers are facing this issue. We're going to make that experience more effective for them, whether that be changes in policy or process or the way that things are set up. So they serve teams by helping them to be effective and efficient. They help customers by making sure that the support experience that can be delivered by teams is effective. And the third one that I think people leave out of this equation quite often is the business. Like, ultimately, support operations is there to liaison with the business as well, to say, hey, support is working on this. These are the things that they're doing. These are the business needs and the main value drivers for the organization and the direction that the company is headed in. We need to deliver on certain KPIs. We need to deliver that value to the organization that we know that support can deliver. And so support operations is there to say, hey, we can deliver on those outcomes, and this is how we're going to do it by working with those teams and working on this support experience for customers. So they're split between these three main groups and functions where we need to say, hey, this is for business, this is the things for teams, and these are the things for customers. And there we think about, okay, how do I balance the deliverables for all of these teams or outcomes for business or for customers? Who do I focus on and for where? Because when you start to drop one of these things off, it creates a culture and it creates ineffectiveness for the others. So for example, if you focus on teams and customers, it makes support operations too operational, where we're doing great things for teams, we're doing great things for customers, but we're not necessarily delivering on the KPIs or the focuses that the business has, and we're not delivering as much value, or at least showcasing as much value as we potentially could. And so there it becomes a task center. It becomes something that, hey, yeah, support ops can do this, they can do that, they can do this thing, and sometimes it can be a bit overloaded, where if you do really focus on saying, hey, we can deliver this particular business value, we know that we can deliver on this KPI, let's focus there and let's push that. And so there you want to try to find how to showcase and build that deliverables to the business. At the same time, if you say, hey, we're going to focus on the business, this is great, and we're going to focus on customer outcomes, and that's going to be wonderful, what impact does that have on your teams? You can, for example, say, hey, yeah, this is really, really good for the business. This is the direction they're going in. It's really good for customers because of this. But by the way, your support team is now going to need to process things in this really clunky way. It's going to be great, and teams can feel like they're the least priority, where it's a bit difficult to think about, hey, how do we make it not only valuable to the business, valuable for customers, but also don't push that all on the teams and make all that workload extremely heavy or clunky or more difficult for teams to be able to actually do the work that they need to do. And when you push teams like that, and when you push teams in such a way that there's additional workload or they need to really start pushing certain KPIs extremely hard, it can lead to burnout, it can lead to ineffective processes, it can lead to so many things that make a team perform less, essentially. Where you still want high-performing teams. You want those teams to be healthy, happy, and being able to be as productive and efficient as possible. So that's something that we really need to focus on as well. And at the same time, if you forget customers, I mean, that's kind of the entire reason we exist, right? If we say, hey, the business is really, really great for this, and the teams, it's good for them, but the policy change is really bad for customers. The sentiment is going to drop. It's going to impact X amount of revenue or churn because we didn't focus on customer impact. How are your customers impacted by the things that you do for businesses and teams? If you say, hey, for the business, no refunds, fantastic. It's great. No refunds. For teams, it means they don't have to process it, but they might have to deal with some conversations of customers that are happening. But is that actually a good outcome for your customers? Does it actually build that relationship and experience that you want to have with customers? That, I think, is an important question to ask as well. So my definition is a bit evolved for support operations to where now I think about it as support operations creates and maintains the entire system for effective service delivery, scaling high-performing teams, and driving those business outcomes. These are the three things that I try to really focus support operations around. And the question then becomes, how do we actually deliver on that? What are the things that support operations should be doing or could be thinking about doing that might actually deliver on all three of these things? And that's where, for me, the 4 pillars of support operations comes into play. And those 4 support operations pillars then become these things. 1, how things actually work. Is the actual operations pillar within itself. This is how things actually progress, how things actually work, and how the actual nuts and bolts of things are running. It comes down to tooling. What are the tools that support people have, that your teams have? What is the actual tools that we use? What are the data and insights that we have? So it's 1, how things work. 2, what things do we actually have to use? What information do we have about them? Do we actually understand what our measurements look like? Do we have the right data in place? And how we actually enable that across the organization. What do we actually know? If you have great processes, you have great tooling, you have great data, do people actually know how to use it effectively and to maximize the value that they can get out of that? These are the 4 pillars that I think about. It's operations, tooling, data and insights, and enablement. And what I would like to walk you through now is what those things actually entail as in each piece of that. So for example, for operations, this focuses on the processes and methods that are used to carry out tasks. It ensures streamlined workflows. And when I think about operations, I think of the 4 Ps. And when I say the 4 Ps, that comes down to people, it's process, procedure, and policy. When you think about people, do you have the right people in the right place? Do you want to use a BPO? Do you want to use in-house support? Do you want to staff capacity? That's workforce planning. That comes down to making sure that you have enough people in the right place at the right time to be able to deliver a service quality that you're looking to deliver. understanding the air traffic control of the channels that you use, where people should be, what is your your seasonality, do you need staffing for that, and how do you want that staffing to look like? These are all things that I think about when I think about people. When it comes to process and procedure, it is the actual running of how things work. When we have a refund, for example, what does somebody need to do in order to be able to actually deliver the outcome that the customer is looking for? When we need to process something, what are the steps that they need to take? Are those efficient? Do those processes actually make sense? Are they clunky? Are they outdated? How do we actually streamline processes and procedure for agents and the team? And then also, do those policies make sense? For example, if you have, I keep using a refund policy as an example, comes from a B2C experience that we have. But for example, for business-to-business organizations or anything, it can also apply, where our policy for a certain thing is we can check and verify, is it actually working for our business? Is it actually working for our customers? And can we update and maintain service policies? What rights do agents have to be able to make decisions? What rights do they need approval for? How do we actually go through certain processes? And the agent's ability to do certain things, or the customer's ability to do certain things, are also something that operations teams can think about and maintain as well, if given the ownership to be able to do so, where they can make sure that a specific policy is working, and then the procedures behind that support that policy, and they actually support the way that support policy is handled. So when I say policy, for example, it does lead more towards service policies and how the team operates, not necessarily company global policy, if that's something that is also being discussed and decided. It's more so for how agents work and operate and what customers have the ability to do, where operations team is in a good position to be able to monitor how that's actually working for customers or not, and streamline it. So when I think about operations, these are the 4 P's that I think about. It's people, process, procedure, and policy. When it comes to tooling, moving on to the second pillar there, it focuses on the technology that we use, optimizing it to be effective, systems, automation, the way that we actually go about using tooling. Do we have the right tools in place, and are we actually maximizing those tools? Those are the things that really come into play when you say, hey, we want to be as efficient as possible, but our tech stack doesn't allow us to, or people don't know how to use the tools that we actually are putting out and using. So when I think about tooling, it comes down to systems and infrastructure. Do we actually have the right tools in place, and are they built in such a way that is actually helpful and useful? Say, for example, you have a CRM, but you don't necessarily have the setup and structure that is needed to actually be able to actually support the things that you need to be able to do. It's maintaining that infrastructure and evolving it alongside your organization. So if you have a help desk, you could think of this as who is doing Zendesk admin, or who is actually administrating your help desk system, and actually making sure that that infrastructure is developed. It's about automation and integration. So our process is actually automated. When I think about this, how can we reduce as many clicks as possible for people when they're actually going through processes and when they actually need to actually execute something? How much can we automate and integrate our services with others so that our CRM speaks with our help desk if there are 2 different systems? Or how do teams actually get information that they need at the right time? Do we have Slack integrations? Do we have things that are integrated with our actual product that can give us more information? And here I think about really streamlining that automation side of things and thinking about how can people actually be a bit more effective. And lastly, that comes down to actual scalability and optimizing it. Of course, you can have great systems and infrastructure, you can have great automation, but is it built to last? The answer is usually always no. Things won't always be the same a few years from now. Is it actually optimized for your business? Sometimes yes, sometimes no, but it's really thinking about, if we need to help thousands of more customers, will this system actually support that load that we're about to put on it? And so they should optimize it for the business and the organization and the growth trajectory that you have, that you need to be able to support when you think about our ability as an organization to support those people as well. When it comes to the third pillar, so we've talked about operations. This is how things actually work. And when it comes to the 4 Ps, people, process, procedure, and policy, getting those things set up. We talked about tooling, maintaining that system, that infrastructure, the tools that people actually use to be effective. And data and insights is that third pillar that we have, which is what is the actual information that we can leverage? We have so many thousands of conversations a day with customers. How do we actually understand the performance of agents? How do we actually understand customer needs and turn that data into actually insights that drive informed and actionable change? What can we actually do with that information? It's great that we have it. We're collecting it. Why do we collect it? What are we actually going to do with that information? That is something that the support operations team is able to actually take a step back and say, hey, we monitor all of these X dashboards, these particular metrics. We define the right metrics to be able to track for our business needs, etc. So when I break down data and insights, it's about actually how are we collecting that information? Do we actually have clean data? As you know, less data is always better than dirty data per se. That way you're not misinformed, but you actually can be guided in the right way. How do we go about collecting that data? Is it something that is safe to use? Do we actually have the pieces in place to be able to collect the data that we want? And how is it actually maintained? It's about setting up metrics and measures. So with the organization moving in a certain direction, we want to think about what are the specific and strategic key metrics that we need to be able to put in place and keep monitoring to make sure that we're performing well. We're setting benchmarks, we're being able to create KPIs, maybe that goes into your objectives and key results process later on, and there where you can actually start to understand and measure performance for your support organization. And then also, it's about insights and actionability. It's great that you're collecting a lot of data, it's great that you're monitoring some metrics. What does it actually mean in your context, and what are we actually going to do about it? So for example, this could come with, for our team as an operations team, our team delivers insights reports quite frequently actually, where they say, hey, this is how performance has been, this is what's actually happening within support, and these are our recommendations to create better outcomes for customers, teams, or the business. And this is what we can actually do. And you try to drive that change and that action throughout the organization. It's a really great feedback loop to be able to have, because without this, how can you say, we actually want to change this policy? It's great that you want to change that policy, sure. Why? And there it's difficult to back up the reasoning or validation without these insights. If you don't have this data, if you don't have the metrics, if you don't have the insights to actually say and validate why you want to change a certain process, why you want to change a certain policy, or maybe change the way that you staff, how can you actually validate that decision and actually get that across the line? Without data, you're just another person with an opinion. That's a quote I love, and I think that it's really, really important when it comes to operations, and it's a core piece of what you want to do. Because without data, how do you actually understand your tools are effectively run? How do you understand the policies and processes are working or not? You need this information to be able to actually operate. There, I think that this is one of the core pieces that support operations should be focused on being able to deliver. And that brings us to our last pillar, which is actually enablement. It's about the information and the things that we actually know. This is about ensuring that the teams have the skills and knowledge to deliver high-quality experiences, so it does focus more on the support team and cross-functional exercises. And we also want those teams to be informed about changes that are happening in the product or process that are coming down the road. If customers, for example, know about a product before your team does, I think you've failed at enablement, and it's really, really unfortunate and something that we should be able to focus on because, for example, you need those people to stay informed in order to be able to deliver a really good support experience. So when I think of enablement, these are some of the things that I think about. It's knowledge management. How do we actually maintain internal documentation? How do we make sure that our teams can stay informed? Do they have the right information? Do customers have the right information? This knowledge management piece is also an entire specialty. So keep that in mind. It's about training and development. Do the reps have the skills and knowledge that they need to be able to succeed? Do they actually know fully about your product and all the services that are being developed? Do they actually know how certain processes work? This could look like, for example, you're onboarding new people, you're working with developing a new specific type of quality program, how are you actually developing empathy skills or problem solving, etc. So here we think about maintaining the actual knowledge that we have, making sure that it's up to date and accurate, and training people in skills and knowledge around that. And then also communication and change readiness. Support operations is in a really, really good place to help the teams with change management. Say, for example, the organization is deciding to launch a full new service or product. How do you actually get teams ready for that launch? How are you actually preparing for that piece? You're communicating cross-functionally with other teams. You're relaying this information, being a liaison, where you're information gathering across the organization and relaying that back to the teams at the right time in order to make sure that they're well informed and ready for any change that's going to come their way. When I think about enablement, it's really about making sure that everyone is confident in the work that they do, making sure that they're not left with questions or things are left to ambiguity, or they're not just left out there to, hey, here's the deep end, good luck. So these are the 4 pillars that I think about when I think of support operations. It's how things work, what are the things that we actually use, what information do you actually have to be able to leverage, and do people actually know about it? And there are a lot of scenarios and examples that I could go through that could help be able to break that down in an actual practical setting, and I'm happy to talk about those another time as well, or in the comments there again. Operations, tooling, data insights, and enablement, these are the way that I think about it in the framework that I use. When I actually think about this in practice, it's deciding how you want things to run, getting the right tools in place to support that decision and that running. It's about setting up the right measurements and metrics, and also just learning from how you're actually enabling that. So if you decide you want to run something in a certain way, do the tools and systems actually support that way? Are you measuring the success of that? And then if you're learning from that through data collection, you want to enable this process again and continue this loop of iteration for the success of your team. And that's something that your support operations team should constantly be doing as they implement new processes, as they make changes in the system, as they make new policies, etc. So it's something that you want these 4 pillars to really continue to drive change and success for your teams. So if you want to know where to start, this is one example and way that we got started with support operations. So for example, I don't have budget for support operations, and to be honest, we don't have a support operations team dedicated here at AIHR. We run it without, which is a bit unique and also counterintuitive to this conversation, because I really do advocate for having dedicated support operations if you do have the chance. For our size and scale and our customer base, it's working for us now, and this is how we went about doing it. We delegated support operations, and we have delegative processes here at AIHR. The way that we went about it was creating a framework for ownership. So where does our support team actually own certain processes, and what are those areas, or I call them domains, that our support team can fully own and function with? And to give you some perspective into our team, our current support team is 4 people, and we support a customer base of 30,000 active customers, where we had 75,000 interactions across the board for the year. And yeah, we continue to run with 4 people with these processes. So it's unique for us, and I think that's something that's really cool about support operations. It's about like Legos. They have similar core pieces, but they can be built in many different ways. I like to think about it that way as well. How is it pieced together for you? So what we did is we created a framework for ownership, and that came down to 3 pillars. That's about knowledge, quality, and data. I have a full write-up on this framework that I used for us internally, so I'm happy to share that. What we did then is we gauged the capabilities and interest from the team. So we said across these areas of ownership for our support team. What are the things that you would be interested in working on, and what are the things that you have capability for and interest to do in the future? And what we did then is we created specialisms where people can focus on their area of ownership and develop their capabilities and skills in that way. So it's great for us as a business, as an organization, to say that support operations is covered by the team. It's great for the employees and the team members because they develop specialties and skills that they're actually interested in developing. And it's great for customers because that means that they're getting that support experience that is a bit more well-rounded than just everybody trying to run the ship as it sails, essentially. So that's how we started to do it with no budget, for example, where we did focus on developing the team internally and into these specialisms and giving that opportunity. So this is the way that we broke it down, just as an example of how to get started with this. And this is a whole separate conversation as well. Let me know if you want me to make a video or talk about that one in a future video. You can leave a comment below and let me know. And any questions that you might have, questions, comments, concerns, anything else, please feel free to ask me. I'm always open to any of those types of conversations or anything that might come up. So with that, good luck. If you could let me know if you enjoyed this type of video, if you liked this walkthrough, if you liked anything like that, please feel free to leave a comment below or let me know directly. I'm always happy to try and make information available and more readily accessible for you in whatever way that is most helpful. So with that, good luck.